Hello friends, welcome back to my channel, and we are back with another exciting tutorial on GitHub Actions. So what we are going to talk about in this tutorial, we'll see how we can set up a complete CICD pipeline for building Docker image and push it to Docker Hub using GitHub Actions. So we'll be seeing like how we can use a Docker build and then you can push this to Docker Hub in using the GitHub Actions. Okay, so the complete tutorial, what we're going to talk about, it's like the pipeline, how you can make use of GitHub Action workflow. So to consider the scenario, like you are a developer or you are a person who do the coding of your application, and you will push that into your GitHub, right? So you'll commit your code into the GitHub, and from GitHub we are going to develop a continuous integration and deployment using GitHub Actions. So what we will have, it's like like Jenkins or GitLab, what we have seen how CICD works. In here this case we are going to use GitHub Actions, and we are going to check out the GitHub repository to the GitHub, and what we will do is like we will have a Docker file in our GitHub. So we will see how you can create your Docker file, and that Docker file will be used in your your GitHub action as a configuration file, and we will build your Docker image using the Docker file, because for building a Docker image, the Docker file is the configuration or the steps which will be defined in the Docker file. And once the Docker build is completed, we will push that Docker image to Docker Hub, which is the repository for image, right? So if you want to push it to different repository, like your own repositories, or it can be a GitLab repository, so different ways are there. But in our case, what we are going to do is we are going to build this Docker image and push it to Docker Hub. So this overall process we will be doing in this tutorial. We will see the demo, we'll talk about the application, how the Docker file is written, how the GitHub action workflow is written, different jobs, different kind of actions we use, how to log into Docker Hub, how to build the image, how to push it. So all those things we will discuss in this tutorial. So before getting started, I also would like to say there are some prerequisites for doing the complete setup. So for you to have this tutorial to be completed, you need to have a GitHub login and have a repository of your application. If you don't have it, you create one, and you can clone the project of mine, or you can fork it from the GitHub repository which I'm using, okay, which is public, and I will link into this video description. And you also need to have this application, which can be a Node.js or any kind of application, how you want to build it. And in our case, we are going to use a Node.js simple web application, okay. And you need to have a Docker file. So we'll also see what the Docker file we have written. So in your application case, you may have to return separately based on your application. And if you don't know how to set up all those things, you can check my Docker tutorial, okay. And you also need to have a Docker Hub login, so that we can push our image into the Docker Hub. So that for that you need to have a Docker Hub login, so that we can tag when we build it. You can tag your Docker login, and you can push it to that Docker Hub repository, okay. So that's the overall process. So let's get started, the actual demo. So before I get started, I would also request you, like, if you have not subscribed to my channel, or if you have not liked my channel, please click on subscribe button, like my videos, share, and give your feedback in the comment section as well. So what I'm going to use, this node app _ test GitHub repository. So I will give this link into the video's description as well. So I have the whole application here, and you can see it has this package.json. I have index.js. So all those things, it's a simple application. If you can see, it's a simple express app which will give some routes, right? App.get in the home page, and will ready. So it's a simple application, okay. So you can refer this GitHub for more details, and you have the package.json file, you have a test folder, and you have a Docker file. Don't worry about this deployment service.yaml, because that I have used for Kubernetes tutorial as well. In basic, you need only the index package.json and the Docker file and this test based on your application, okay. Now you can see this GitHub.workflow, which this is because I already deployed GitHub action here. Similar to this app, I have a different app, which is, if you see this Docker Docker app, right? So here, if you see, I don't have any .github workflows, right? Like .github/workflow, because I have not have actions created yet. So these are your general app repository will look like without GitHub actions. So you can see you'll have this one, and you have to have a Docker file, right? So let's go to the Docker file first. So if you go to this Docker file, and what we are doing is we are going to call the Node.js base image, right? And into that we are going to use a working directory where this app will be running. and I'm going to copy the package.json to user src/app, right? And then we are going to run npm install, so that will install all the Node.js packages, and then I'm going to copy the rest of the files into this location, and then I'm going to expose the port 3000, and the command cmd I'm going to tell node index.js, right, to start that application. It's a pretty simple Docker file. If you, as I mentioned, if you want to know more about how to write the Docker file, check on my tutorial is on Docker. Okay, so I'm not going to go in depth into this. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, like here, if you see my GitHub action, I already have this workflows, right? So let me go to the other one. So in your case, you will be like this, where you don't have a workflow, so you need to go to GitHub Actions. So once you go to the GitHub Actions, you will see it will automatically suggest you for this repository based on the content you have. Like, you know, you have Node Deno, you have Jekyll, use Docker image, Grunt, Gulp, publishing Node packages to GitHub packages, right? So different deployment options like Azure Web Apps, you know, different options it's will give it to you. So if you see something which you directly use it, you can use that template, so it will automatically create the template. Other option is you can just click on set up workflow by yourself. Okay, so once you click on that, it will ask you, you know, it will automatically create this .github workflow / main.yaml, right? So once I put the content here, it will be automatically creating that. Okay, so but I'll just cancel these changes, okay, because I don't want to put it here. Yeah, if you see, I already have created the package here, right? So if I go back to my, you know, this one, you can see I already have a main.yaml. So let's just look on what we have written in the main.yaml. Okay, so this is the content of the main.yaml, or the GitHub workflow, which we are going to put it so that we will automatically push your build your image and push it to the Docker Hub. Okay, so the workflow, what we are going to do is we are going to name to the workflow, which is publish Docker image, right? So that's the name of the workflow, so you can give any name. Okay, so based on what you give, it will list it over here. Like if you go to GitHub Actions, you will see the workflow name, right? So you can see what the workflow name, and if you click on it, you will see what is the package, right? Update, this is the latest one which if you click on it, it will show you the jobs, right? So the next part is, the job. So before the job, what we also need to define is what the event, on which event this job has to be started, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to define like on push, like if there is any push action or any commit into this master, it will start this job, right? You can also do different kind of other events like release. If there is a release from this GitHub repository, it can start. So different options you have, you can check those details, like what all the details you can put. Okay, the next part is the job. Once there is a push in the master branch, you can define what the job has to do, right? So our job is to push the Docker image to Docker Hub. That's the name of our job, right? Okay, so if you see, that's the job, push Docker image to Docker Hub, right? So if you click on it, it will show you all the steps, right? So once the job has been defined, we also has to define on which runner it has to run. So we have to put like runs on Ubuntu latest. So it's going to use the Ubuntu latest runner image, and it's going to run these steps. Okay, the first step what we have to do is we have to check out the repo, right? So in order to build our image, you need to have this repo checked out, and we need to use the Docker file, right? That's how we usually do it locally. Like you have to have the source code downloaded, then you create Docker build -t and use the Docker file, right, to build your image. So for that, what you need to do is we need to use an action, because when last tutorial in GitHub we told like there are different kind of things like actions, events, or jobs, right? So this is a default actions we are going to use. So we are going to use action to check out the repository. So it will check out this GitHub repository, and the next part of the step is like log into the Docker Hub, right? So we also need to log into your Docker Hub account so that we can build it and we can push it to that. Okay, so here also we are going to use an action, docker/login action. This is the one. These are standard from GitHub, you can just use it. But in order to log in, you need to have a username and password, right? So I don't want to hard code my username and password here. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a secret. Okay, so I'm going to create secret here. So if you see, in my case, if I go to settings for this repository, and if I go to secret and values action, you can see the secrets are already added here, right? So how you can add it? If you go to in a repository, if you don't have that, you go to secret, you can go to actions, you click on create new secret. You just give the name of secret, like whatever name you are giving. This name has to match, okay, because secrets dot, right? So this has to match, otherwise it will not take this content. So docker underscore username, then you can paste your username here. You can add it the same way you can create the other one, like docker underscore password, and you can put your password here. So and you can add the secret, so it will add up those secret like this. And once you call those variables here, environment variables, the secret here, so it will use those to log into the Docker Hub. Now the next part is like we are going to build or this image, right? So in order to build, we are going to use some tags and labels for Docker. So I'm just going to use another action, so Docker meta action. So then we are going to build the image as tips for you slash node.js app, right? So this is the name I have given. You can give any name, okay, but this part has to be sure, because this is your Docker Hub login, okay. If it does not match, it's not logging in, then it will not build, okay. So what we are going to do is this is a meta, okay, just giving the meta details for your building, okay. So we are setting the the building to tell that it has to use this image name. The next part is like we are going to do the build and push Docker image. So you can see like here also we are going to use an action like a Docker build push action, and we are going to use this action, and we are going to set the tags as step.meta output.tags. From here it will be pulling it from here, and the labels also it's trying to pull it from here, okay. So this is one way of doing it. You can also do in another way, like you can also use like commands like Docker build command and Docker push commands. That is also other ways to do it. There are different ways how you can do it in the GitHub action, but this is like we are using the standard actions from Docker itself, okay. So this is the Docker build and push part, okay. This is the meta part where it's storing the meta tags and label, and this is the login part of Docker image, right? Okay, so the ones we have to do is we just need to copy this and we need to put it into your GitHub actions. Sorry, we have to put it into the main.yaml, okay. So you can see the main.yaml. I already copied and pasted this content over here. And what you need to do is now whenever there is a change in your code, it will build it, okay. So let me go and create a small change and do a commit, okay. I will just put a space and just maybe I'll just change the port number to 4000. Okay, let's keep it 3000 itself, okay, then there is no change, okay. Let's change it to 4000 and just commit it. Now if I go to the actions, you can see it has started another workflow, right? If I go to this Docker file, updated Docker file, right? So you can see it started the new action. So it started setting up the checking repository, extracting the meta, right? So it has already completed that. Now it's building and pushing the Docker image, right? So you can see it's trying to do those steps. And if you see, this is my Docker Hub login. I know I don't have anything at this point as okay, it started creating now, okay. It was not there, so it's just you can see it's just few seconds ago, right? It started creating it. Now we have to wait for this process to be completed, so it's trying to build and push it, okay. So it may take some time based on your Docker image, the content, like how much it has to download from base image, how much it has to create the image, okay. You can see it's still processing. So let's wait for it to be completed. So once that is completed, I think we should see the master image is still not completed yet, okay. So it's using the tag as master, okay. So let's wait for that to be completed, okay. So it's just pushed a minute ago. So I hope once we finish it, it will also show it's completed over here, okay. Okay, I think it's complete, okay. So it's completed the whole process, cleaning up the orphan process. It has completed the checkout, post checkout, post login to Docker Hub, all those activities I think is completed. Okay, so that's why we are able to see our image over here as well. It's pretty simple, right? So you can see, you know, if I go back to my workflow, you can see update Docker file, right? That's the last update I have done, and it has completed the whole, it's a green check mark, right? So workflow has completed successfully, and we are able to see the whole process is completed, and we also able to see our Docker, you know, image stored in our Docker Hub, right? So now you can use this Docker image to pull to any system, like you know, you can use like tips for you / node.js app, and the tag should be master for this image. Okay, and if you want to give different tag, it can use that as well. So I think that's very clear, right? So I will link this node.js app into my video description. So if you have any doubt, you can just come here and you can check the Docker file, you can check the main.yaml, you can use this repository, you can fork it, and you can use it for a different other purpose. So it's an open project, so I will link into the video description as well. So to recap, this is what we discussed. We have committed the code into the GitHub, and from GitHub we are going to check out to GitHub Actions for using our Docker file as a config for building our Docker image. Then we are going to push the Docker image to Docker Hub, right? So that's our process we have seen in this video. So that